All right, we're going to continue our notes today. This time we're going to talk about non-proportional linear equations, which is just where it's a constant rate of change. So I told you in the last video and told you in other notes that you have what's called constant rate of change, and then you have what's called constant and proportionality. Constant rate of change does not go through 0, 0. Oops. A constant and proportionality does go through 0, 0. So if you have a constant rate of change, your equation is always going to be this: y equals mx plus b. It's always going to look like that. If you have a constant of proportionality, it's always going to be y equals mx. Today, we're only working with constant rate of change, things that are not proportional, meaning that it does not cross the y-axis. The m in that equation is your change in y over your change in x. It's also your slope. It's also your constant rate of change. It's also your constant of proportionality. It just means what is happening between y and x. If I take y and divide it by my x, what is happening? That's all that it means. All right, so we're just going to jump right in and kind of go into this. So your notes, all you're doing now is I've given you an equation. This is kind of written a little bit backwards, but we're substituting the information in. This is what's called checking it. Okay. And all that means, all I'm doing is taking the x values to try to come up with my y value by substituting it in. So let's do that. 4 times, it says x right there. So 4 times negative 4 plus 2. Well, 4 times negative 4 plus 2, that's negative 16 plus 2, which is negative 14. I'm trying to pull my other notes out too at the same time. So there's the first one. Now do the second one. 4 times negative 2 plus 2. You're doing the exact same thing over and over again. You're just plugging in, substituting the x value with this number here. So 4 times negative 2 plus 2. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Plus 2 is negative 6. I believe so. I'm having a moment. So let's just double check me just to make sure. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Plus 2 is negative 6. I wrote it wrong in my other notes. I'm glad I caught that. Wonder how many years I've been doing that. But either way, you're still plugging in this number right here are all your x values. And you're just constantly doing it. 4 times 0 plus 2, that's 0 plus 2. So you get a 2 is your answer there. And then 4 times 2 plus 2. So 4 times 2 plus 2 is 10. So if you look over here, what's happening with the y's, we are adding 8 each time. And what's happening with your x's, you're subtracting 2 each time. So that means your constant rate of change is your change in y over your change in x, which is 8 divided by 2, which is a negative 2. 8 divided by negative 2, your constant rate of change is negative 4. That's all I'm asking you to do. You're just plugging in the numbers, basic math. So we're going to do this next one here. Same thing. Negative 2 times 6 plus 5. So negative 2 times 6 plus 5. Negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. Negative 12 plus 5 is negative 7. And I've done that wrong. Let's look at that again, because I'm not paying attention to doing two things at once. Sorry. Okay. I don't know why it's not erasing, right? Okay. Negative 2 times 6, and that is actually minus 5. So it's negative 2 times 6 minus 5. So that is negative 12 minus 5, which is negative 17. So you've got to watch your signs here. So negative 2 times a positive 4 minus 5. So negative 2 times positive 4 minus 5, that's negative 8 minus 5, and that gives you negative 13. Negative 2 times 2 minus 5, so each time I'm just putting in that x value. So negative 2 times 2 minus 5, that's negative 4. Negative 4 minus 5 is negative 9. Keep going. 2 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. So now we can see what our constant rate of change is here. Our constant rate of change is going to be my change in y over my change in x. The y is increasing 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It is increasing by 4 each time. So it's increasing by 4. And down here on the x's, it's decreasing by 2. And 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. So my constant rate of change there is negative 2. All right, let's go to the next one. Now it says 2/5. And I know students hate working with fractions, but it's not that difficult. 2/5 times 5 minus 6. All right. So 2/5 times 5 over 1. Those two cancel out. So that gives you 2 over 1 minus 6. Well, 2 minus 6 is negative 4. 2/5 times 10 minus 6. So 2/5 times 10 over 1. Cross cancel those two. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So you get 2 over 1, and which is 2. So then 2 minus negative 6, or minus 6, is going to give you sorry, 2/5, 10 over 1. Cancel those out. 2 times 2 is 4. Sorry. 4 over 1. 4 minus 6 is 2. Negative 2. Make sure you watch your signs. It's getting late in the day, so I'm struggling a little bit, so sorry about that. 2 over 5 times 15 over 1. Those cross cancel. 3 times 2 is 6 over 1. So 6 minus 6 is 0. And then the last one, 2/5 of 20. So 2/5 times 20 over 1. Remember, when you're multiplying fractions, you just put the whole number over 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 20 divided by 5 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8 over 1. So you get 8, and 8 minus 6 is going to give you a positive 2. So my constant rate of change here, that's decreasing by 2. So my constant rate of change is my change in y over my change in x. And I know I'm going pretty fast, so you can slow down the video if you need to. This is increasing by 5 each time. So I've got negative 2 over 5. So my constant rate of change is negative 2 over 5. All right, let's get down here where it says the cost of a cab was $8. Now I didn't give you the formula, or I didn't give you the equation. You're going to come up with that. So the cost of the cab, so the cost was $8 per mile. So what this means is I'm going to spend $8 every mile I go. So there's my MX. So I've already got part of my thing. So I know that this is going to be 8x plus $5. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory. They're just saying add $5 each time. So now you just do the same thing that you've been doing. Oh, crap. Okay, so let's plug in these numbers. 8 times 1 plus 5, 8 times 1 plus 5, 8 plus 5 is 13. Second one is 8 times 2 plus 5. 8 times 2 is 16. Plus 5 is 21. 8 times 3 plus 5. 8 times 3 plus 5. That's 24. 29. 8 times 4 plus 5 gives you 37. When you go look at to find out what your constant rate of change is, if you've kind of figured out the pattern, the constant rate of change is going to be 8. That's increasing by 8 each time. This side is increasing by 1. So your constant rate of change is your change in y over your change in x, and the y was changing by 8, and the x is changing by 1, which means your constant rate of change is x, which is that number right there, which is what I've been telling you the whole time. All right, let's look at this next one here. Cost of the movie is $9 per person. So that's 9x. So there's your MX. Minus $6. So then just plug it in. 9 times 3. Oops. Nine times 3 is 27. 27 minus 6 is 21. Then this one is 30. Then this one is 39. And this one is 48. Hopefully you can figure out how I got those numbers. I just did 9 times 3 minus 6. It's 27 minus 6, got 21, and so on and so on. And I did each one. Let's go check our constant rate of change. What's happening there is we're adding 9. We're adding 9. We're adding 9. We're adding 1. We're adding 1. We're adding 1. So my change in y over my change in x is 9 over 1, which equals 9, and that's that number. So there we go, we've checked it. All right, last little bit here. Identify the constant rate of change or the slope. Remember in 7th grade, we call it constant rate of change. In 8th grade, they'll talk to you about the slope. That's how steep the line is going. And the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So your constant rate of change on this one is 3/5. That's your m. And your y-intercept is +4. Your constant rate of change is -9. Oops. Because that's your m. Make sure you're paying attention to that sign. And your y-intercept is +5. Your constant rate of change is 8/1. And we typically write all these in fractions. So it would be a good idea for you to get in that habit, because when we actually start putting this on a graph, it'll make a little more sense. So if you want to leave it in a fraction form, but make sure it's in its simplest form. In other words, it's simplified to its smallest fraction. But either one is right. 8/1 or 8 is right. The y-intercept is -2. It's going to cross at the -2. Constant rate of change is -1/2. And your y-intercept is -9. And this should help you with your notes for today and your assignment.